A Dallas man facing charges after taking a sledgehammer to a dozen police cars. We'll take you to the front lines of Central Texas's war on opioids and introduce you to some of the people who live and breathe it every day. Investigations are often like an hourglass. It seems like it's moving so slowly, and then when it gets to one certain part, they get a break in the case, boom, all the sand falls through, and that's what happened early this morning. Texans are proud. Austinites are a special kind of proud. I'm not sure there is any city in America where the people who live there are as proud of their city as they are in Austin. Just talk about how this city really came together, because it's really been a story of that over the last 48 hours or so. And there you have it.
There you have it.
What do you think of that?
I like a good sports fight.
You like a good fight?
I like hockey fights better.
Hockey fights are good, too.
Yeah.
Makes it worth it, right?
Exactly.
What is wrong with you?
The action.
Oprah Winfrey could make a run for president.
You get a pardon. You get a pardon. Coming up, find out if politics are in Oprah's future. That was the last explosion we saw. The very first explosion was all the way back on March 2nd. That was in northeast Austin on Haverford Drive. That is where we find our Rena Diamante, who is going back there to the scene where this all began. And Rena, not only was it the first explosion, but that was the first of 2 deaths we've had in these bombings. You join the British Royal Navy, eager to get your first assignment. Then it comes. Report immediately to Boaty McBoatface. A Comal County judge says God told him to interrupt jury deliberations in a sex trafficking case to push for a not guilty verdict. Married this super terrific, crazy blue blood moon thing. I actually went out to look at it. Of course, I couldn't see anything.
I know, I
You were
did
sleeping.
too.
I was sleeping.
It's the last major hurricane to hit anywhere in the United States, here, Florida, anywhere in the East Coast, Gulf Coast, was Hurricane Wilma in 2005. It's been 12 years, a dozen years, and that is the longest drought we've ever seen in the United States since we started keeping track of these things. That is the truck that I believe is the very first, or certainly maybe the most important, because it has on it the World Series trophy, along with shortstop Carlos Correa, #1 there you see, and with his hands up there to the right, you see #4. That is George Springer, the World Series MVP. So it looks like we could actually have a shutdown. Samantha Joe, what will happen if we do? Yeah, the cold affecting animals of all varieties. With more freezing temperatures this week, the SeaWorld San Antonio rescue team heading back to North Padre Island to rescue cold-stunned sea turtles. The CDC says 115 Americans die from opioid overdoses every day, and that number will likely rise. It's not an unwinnable war, but as you've just seen, it's one that takes an entire community to wage.
Controversy, rippling like the flag. Around the flag, an NFL quarterback makes a gesture, starts a movement, lights a fuse.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Nate Boyer couldn't fathom why his favorite team's quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, chose to sit during the national anthem last August.
I was angry and hurt, at first to see Colin sitting, because I didn't understand why. And
that anger, born of service to his country, 6 years in the Army, a Green Beret, a man who makes the impossible possible.
No is one of my favorite words. Proving people wrong is like become an obsession of mine. And
after the Army, Boyer defying no again, not on the battlefield, on a football field. Enrolling at the University of Texas, walking on to the Longhorns, even though he was too short, too slow, and had never played football in his life.
Scrambled to find a way on the field via long snapping, the thankless job that nobody wants to do.
It seemed nobody wanted to defend Kaepernick for sitting during the anthem, certainly in the military, and certainly not Boyer. But he did want Kaepernick to know how his actions affected veterans.
So I wrote an open letter, and it was basically just as if you were sitting, as if Colin was sitting right where you were sitting, and I had, 5 minutes to tell him a little bit about me and, how I'm a fan of his, and how I know this isn't about the troops, and it's not about hating America, but I do want to try to understand. I want to try to work together, because I want to see you stand again, and stand because you feel the same way that I feel about our country.
The Army Times published that letter. Kaepernick read it and invited Boyer to meet with him in San Diego.
We talked more about you know, how people in my community were reacting to this. What else can you do? Because sitting isolated like that, to me, looks like you don't care.
But Kaepernick did care, enough to spend 2 hours with Boyer. They talked, listened, and worked something out.
You know, we found a compromise or a middle ground or whatever you want to call it, where, you know, he would kneel alongside his teammates that night for the anthem, and I told him I'd stand next to him if he did that.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
It was Boyer's idea. Yes, it was a military man, a former Green Beret, who asked Colin Kaepernick to kneel for the national anthem.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars.
And people take a knee to pray, you know, people take a knee. We take a knee in front of one of our fallen service members, you know, grave to pay our respects. I think it's more respectful. Of course, that's just my opinion.
Some of Boyer's fellow veterans share that opinion.
Colin listened. He heard that, and that's the point, is that this is a conversation. He's not just trying to disrespect the country, you know, and he's definitely not disrespecting the troops. I think for him it has nothing to do with that.
It's his right to protest. We serve in the military to preserve the rights of the citizens, okay? And we serve in the military to protect the Constitution of the United States.
But for other veterans, especially combat vets,
United States Marine Corps Infantry.
8 years, Marine Corps.
Recon Marine, 1998.
In the United States Navy as a Navy SEAL.
kneeling for the anthem, that they won't stand for.
I mean, I'd like him to apologize for everybody, to the country for doing that, to the flag and to the anthem.
The consequences of his protest is the disgrace and disrespect of a symbol that represents freedom and unity and all the men that have fought, men and women who fought and died to retain the greatness that America truly has and has always had.
The downside of that is a lot of people look at me and blame me for these protests now.
And Boyer's not interested in playing the blame game. He says it's not a game at all.
I've had so many people say, pick a side. You have to take a side. Like, no, this isn't something to win or lose, you know. We gotta do better.